a show. It's a podcast show. Welcome to the Julie Cross Podcast Show. Empowering, energising and entertaining. Hello, welcome to the podcast show. Oh, something in the paper the other day got me going again. It was a big spread in our weekend's paper last weekend, and it was, the big headline is, "Sadness is not sickness." Well, no shit, Sherlock. I've been talking about this for years, in that we have got to stop labelling every time somebody is sad, saying that it is a sickness. Come on, people. Experts in controversial warning that not all downs are depression, and talking about, doctors diagnosing downs as depression just because somebody is sad. We have got to get back to normalising emotions. Emotions are normal. You have down times, you have sad times. Now, look, I feel like I've got to always have a disclaimer here saying this is not having a go at people who need medication for depression. I'm not having a go at anybody. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. You are worth getting help. If you need medication, then you absolutely should be on it, and there is no shame in that. It makes sense. You've got to look after yourself, and some people do need medication. But what we know is that blurry line is getting more blurred. What we now know is that there are people that perhaps just needed a Band-Aid that are getting sent in for an operation when all they needed was a Band-Aid. And so this is what's happening in this emotional arena, and suddenly everything, just because you're sad, it's something wrong. No, it's normal. It's normal to be down sometimes. It's normal to feel shitty sometimes. It's normal for life not to be working every day and you to be joyfully bouncing and skipping through the world. That's normal. And I wrote this piece a little while ago, and I'd just love to share it with you because I think it really does illustrate it perfectly, if I do say so myself, about these emotions. So, maybe I do get why there is depression. Maybe I get why sadness, fear, challenges fester and become an overwhelming burden, because it seems that there's a lot of people not okay being around it, hearing it, talking about it, listening to it and empathising with it. And I felt that too when I went through the worst of my grief and my low moments. They would really rather that you go away until you're feeling better. Like, come back when you're feeling a bit better because I can handle that. Like, I'm a bit uncomfortable sitting here with your sadness. So maybe this is a sign that, we should stay away when the storm hits, and that's why it gets worse. No, let's normalise it. Let's be with each other in these sad times as well. A time when we're most vulnerable sometimes is when we're in that grief time, when we're sad, but it feels like nobody cares, or they do care, but they don't want to hear it, or they don't know how to deal with it because, we've all been told that let's be positive. We've got appearances to keep up. And so sometimes we end up crying into our pillows at night and we won't admit it because, I've read this book that says that we've got to stay positive and everyone else that life's on Facebook looks so good, so I've got to maintain it. And so sometimes it ends up making us feel like we're wrong or bad, that we're sad sometimes, and that we're overwhelmed, and because often it's just appropriate to a situation and it's normal. So I don't want you to get confused though. I'm not talking about that negative energy sucking, glass half empty, always stealing your dreams kind of person, the one who complains about everything all of the time. I'm talking about the person who has been or is in something genuinely challenging and going through something really big, something life changing with grief attached. This is a person who needs to say hello to and be with and express grief. This is a person who should be given the space, the loving space to do that amongst friends, and that should never be made to feel like they are wrong to feel that way. It's normal. It is when we feel that we are wrong to be sad and wrong to have moments of fear, moments of vulnerability, that we start looking for something to fix it. We feel like we're alone because everyone else is pretending that they're coping or they're medicated to cope. And this is just ridiculous. What this is about for me is acknowledging that all emotions that life experiences cause us to have is about not labelling those emotions as good or bad, but about doing them and then moving through them. When I was in the midst of my husband just having a stroke and my son just being diagnosed with autism, I went to a doctor with a pinched nerve in my neck, which I told him I felt was from stress. He asked what I was stressed about. Now, I told him about my husband having a stroke, my son just being diagnosed with autism. I mean, my world had just crashed around me and I started crying. And then he asked if I wanted something for it. And at that point, he wasn't talking about my neck. He was talking about the crying. And I said, how about a frickin' tissue? Now, my regular doctor is amazing and she keeps a check on my physical and emotional health. So I'm not saying all doctors are like this, but I'm saying that clearly this does happen. My sadness didn't need fixing. My sadness needed to be validated. How about saying to me, you have a right to be sad, have a good cry, you'll feel better. When did it become okay not to cry? I think it was appropriate with what I was going through to cry about that sometimes and sometimes often. That does not make me a negative person. It makes me a real person. And perhaps he could have offered me some counselling instead of some medication in that moment. Do not deny yourself the opportunity to be with all of your emotions. It has become more evident to me as time goes on that when we don't deal with all of our emotions, and I don't know exactly how you deal with them. I guess it's better to say be with them. But when we ignore that they are there and keep pushing them back down and locking the door, one day that door will burst open and we will then have to look at them. And that will be maybe the breakdown for a breakthrough. That will be showing up somewhere in your body physically. So I do my emotions. You choose to do the emotions that serve you. Oh, fuck, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, sorry. Oh, well, I'm just going to do that. Do that emotion of feeling like a dick just then. I choose to do all of my emotions, but the ones that don't serve me well, I don't choose to stay in for very long. So that's a choice that we make. We're taught to focus on the positive, be positive. Nobody wants to hear, and sit with you being miserable. And to some extent, this is what I teach. I mean, you want to shift your thinking, and I get this. And I've wondered too, with the law of attraction, if we talk about negativity, are we attracting more negativity? So once again, I'm not talking about that spiral where you become a negative person. I'm talking about honouring your emotions, labelling them, honouring them, and saying, now how long do I want to sit here with them? Because we can change it. When you look at a community, when does a community connect the most? So much so that it moves us to tears. And that's usually through in the midst of a natural disaster, through a very negative situation. Suddenly people are connecting and it's pain that brought them together. It was pain and suffering. It was that emotion that brought people together. So let us make sure we do our emotions, and don't have them do you. Don't have them do you. At some point, we've all got to be honest about where we're at, and we've got to stop and fill up our tank. And so label them. I'm feeling sad right now. I say that I'm a very happy person that has some deeply sad moments, deeply frustrating moments. So do your sadness or it will do you. But you don't have to sit in it for days or for weeks. And of course, if you're having trouble getting out of that sadness, then you need help and you deserve help. So get the help. But you also deserve to know that you're worth the help and lifting yourself forward. So let's normalise emotions. If you don't do your emotions, they will do you. But let us normalise it. And sadness is not sickness. Sadness is not a sickness. It's okay to be sad when you have something that is deeply sad. And let's give our friends and our colleagues the space to do that. But then remember that you also have a right to your joy and allow yourself that as well. Sadness is definitely not sickness. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye. Would you like a little bit more sparkle? Then you're invited to download a free poster at juliecross.com.au.